Alright, I'm starting to wire up the BIP373s. These are going to run the coil. I'm going to have two of them for 4-cylinder wasted spark. Started out essentially by wiring in a 330 ohm gate resistor here. Starts at the top of R26 on the back side of the board here. And I'm going to go ahead and heat shrink that guy up. He runs over to the IGBT-in connection on this other side of the board here. So that's it. Alright, I'm going to bridge together IGBT out and IG in. That's just what the guide told me to do. So use a little piece of wire, solder it on. I've not had any luck bridging without the piece of wire. So looks pretty good, and I'm going to come in and clean it up. Perfect. Alright, to install the BIP373 high current ignition control coil driver, basically I've run my 330 ohm off the top of R26, I believe it is. And so that heads on over to IGBT in here, which is the gate of the IGBT. Has continuity with this pin over here on the right, which will be actually the far left pin of the BIP. So he's going to go on the other side of the board like that. So you also jumper IG in to IGBT out, and then this, I imagine, is your high current, or either collector or emitter, I'm not sure. But either way, that's going to go in there. I mistakenly used this slot earlier, which the MS extra guide told me to do. I'm sure it said something in there about not if you're going to be using the BIP373, but I missed it if it did say that. So luckily I had enough space to move this tip 120 for the PWM IAC up here. So that's an optional thing you can do if you're running an idle control valve. But anyway, so this will handle one of the coil drivers. I'm going to go ahead and heat sink compound that guy up, solder him in place, and get ready to do the second one. Okay, so I'm on to the second coil driver here, and there's a part in the guide that says to wire the high current leg of it to spare 4, and then spare 4 needs a little bit of reinforcement because the trace isn't fat enough. If you look at the other trace up on the top side of the board over here, the traces are good and fat because I know they're going to be carrying a lot of current, but since this is kind of an add-on here, we need to reinforce that trace. So I grabbed a piece of spare cable, is what I'm using for the high current part, just because it's a little beefier than my hookup wire. And essentially I'm just going to come in a spare 4 and run that over to where the trace goes. You can see it right on the board. I did have to lift out this IAC, I'm sorry, the map sensor here, because I soldered it in first. I did see in the guide it said that the guy soldered it on last, but I kind of assumed he meant after the rest of the components. But I should have waited, so if you get the opportunity, go ahead and wait just a little bit and solder that guy in very last. Gives you a little more access down here. I was able to bend him out of the way though, so no big deal. Okay, he's fortified. It's a little close over here, so see if I can bend him out of the way. Yep, looks good. Okay, so I finished up my second coil driver. Its gate's powered by this resistor down here. It's also used for this LED I believe that's just the spark LED, so you can see it flicker. So that runs through a 330 ohm into the chip. It's isolated off of this heatsink with the insulator screwed down here. The power output of it goes through here to spare 4. The bottom of spare 4 is underneath the map sensor here, but it's been fortified to pass a little bit more current through, more than the spare traces can really handle on their own. And then I went ahead and grounded this guy over to the bottom of R43 here, and basically that was suggested as opposed to running to the proto section, because apparently it can introduce some noise into the proto section. That's bad news. So that should about do that. Just some notes: leave this big black thing off if you have the choice. Leave it off as long as possible. It does need a little bit of a bend to fit in the case, at least on mine, but it's kind of always in the way over here. And then leave the map sensor off too, because it gets in the way. So other than that, there's the second coil. Here's the first coil driver over here. They're basically the same thing, spark A and spark B. Fitted my boost control transistor here. Haven't wired it in yet, that'll be another video. Tip 120 is wired in for idle air control. Other than that, it's pretty stock. Got a few modifications here. Input modifications down on the bottom of the board here for the 420A. They're not really modifications actually, they're more just standard setup, I believe, for this motor. So that's it.